And welcome everyone to our second stream at Animore.
Howdy.
Very exciting, yes.
Pocky.
Gotta have Pocky.
I will not choke on my tea like I did last night.
We'll see.
No joke.
So we're back talking about the second day of this very, very snowy convention.
What, we're back talking it?
No.
We're back talking about it.
So what do you think of day two?
Day two. Wow. Oh, busy day.
Mm-hmm.
Had a late night playing games.
I don't know what you're talking about. No.
There are some interesting vintage games that we had a chance to play.
Agreed.
And woke up early, had a great breakfast, and went and did some panels.
Yeah.
Saw some sights. And it was surprising that there was a lot of snow on the ground. Well, I guess it wasn't really surprising. We knew it was coming, but it was surprising how much snow there was. And it was on the roofs and the windows and everywhere, floating around, blowing. And nonetheless, the convention must go on.
Yes, it certainly was as quiet as we thought it might be. We did not really get anyone else in today as opposed to Friday. We've gotten around 30 inches in the area.
Wow.
So that's a lot of snow, and folks are just not traveling today. And granted, the Department of Transportation is basically saying don't go. So people aren't, which is good. When things are shut down for emergency vehicles, we should let emergency vehicles go.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a very nicely quiet convention, very intimate convention today.
Yes.
Yeah.
The crowd size was a little bit smaller, so you could talk directly with your voice actor and different people.
I don't think there was a single panel with more than 20 people in the audience. It was nice.
It did have the hometown comfort of just a few people.
Yep.
And you felt like you were friends with everybody in the room. It was nice in that respect.
Agreed. We had some good time talking to various vendors and dealers and such. And
we may have some interviews to show you later on.
Possibly. Some interesting cosplay stuff going on there. There's a great group doing some 3D printing and cosplay. Fascinating stuff. So I did do a couple of panels today. You may hear my voice is a little bit roughed up because I had a panel that kind of ran for 4 hours. We had a bunch of people come in and do a panel, and the person who's going to do the next panel ended up not showing up for that. So that got sort of switched around, and then from there we talked to, we just sort of hung out in the room and we went through a bunch of different stuff with those people, just asking questions about anime and how all that works.
Having trouble finding our video.
So the as Liquid is saying in the chat room, we got all the snow for the year in one storm.
Hey, Liquidus.
Yep, that's how that works. It's gonna be pretty fun. It's gonna be pretty fun going back home, showing ourselves out. That's gonna be interesting.
I've had several friends and family members call and see if I'm okay because there's so much snow. They closed down the East Coast.
Sure seems that way.
Can you get out your front door? Oh, there's no heat in your building. What? What am I going back home to?
Yeah. So it's been interesting seeing how people have reacted to this, especially online as well as in real life, where people are enjoying themselves as best they can at the convention, really having a good time. I mean, I haven't seen anyone here at the con who isn't as happy as anyone at any other con. Folks aren't frustrated or having problems with the fact that they're kind of snowed in and the con's not working out. They're making the best of it.
In fact, it's almost more so because there's nobody really in any sort of disastrous situations. Everything's all calm and placid.
Yep.
I did see some fun Boffer today. So
what is Boffer play?
Boffer, you have a sword, but it's Nerf basically.
Okay.
But there's a game and a rule to it, and there were some folks engaging in that and matches going on. sort of a fencing thing, and you score different points by, okay, your arm's off, now you got to, your leg's off, now you got to do it on your knees, now you're okay. You're out. All sorts of interesting rules to it. No headshots. Okay, there's rules, but a lot of fun. Nerf. And of course, as you mentioned, 3D printing and lots of cosplay.
Yeah.
And what else did we see today?
We had an interesting time chatting with folks about how the convention got started, and all kind of background of the convention and how they're organizing things. So this convention is run by a group of folks who run a couple different conventions. So this is their first year here, and it turns out they were actually asked to come to Baltimore because of because Otakon is moving out of Baltimore, and so some of the hotels have reached out to some of the other anime organizers and said, "Are any of you interested in starting up another con to kind of replace Otakon?" Now, of course, Otakon is still here this year, but this will be the last year for Otakon. So
for how long?
Ever?
They rebuild the convention center, or ever?
No, they're moving to DC
for good.
Yeah, that's the plan.
For good. Oh my. Well,
as far as we can tell, now the contracts are usually for 3 years, so we'll see how that goes. But if that works, and the thing is, the DC Convention Center is so much bigger. The Baltimore Convention Center has been kind of maxed out for Otakon, so
we'll make it nice and convenient for travel.
Yeah,
because DC has a big hub of local transport. It's funny. Any convention getting started has its rough patches.
Yeah.
We did notice a few things today. Some panelists did not show up and didn't really give the courtesy call to say they weren't showing up. So there were a few hiccups in the con.
Some equipment problems,
A few equipment problems. But nonetheless, the con keeps going. And so there's fans, and where there's fans, people rise to the occasion and fill the gaps. And Brent did several extra gigs today, putting in some panels, which was really interesting because with a smaller crowd, they had Brent's brain to pick. And since he does several panels, he gave them a choice of panels that they'd like for him to present. And so we had the extended bonus round. So it went from, if you like this.
From there to, I talked about the business of anime and all the hard numbers about how much anime gets sold and all that stuff. And then I walked through how to review anime. So my thoughts on how best to do or not do and write reviews, because most folks suck at it. I'm not great at it either, but I can at least give some suggestions based on stuff I've seen. So that was definitely a fun experience, because you're just chatting with folks. They ask questions, you answer questions, you ask them questions. They actually asked me, is there any anime that you like that was made 10, 20 years ago that you would like to see more of? So is there something that was made that you love to see shows like that in the present?
Mattel.
Ah.
I'd love to see some more of her.
Yeah.
She's cute. Oh. Of course, I don't think that's going to happen, but I didn't expect Galaxy Railways either. So
exactly.
You never know.
He's still around. He's still doing stuff. You never know. So, there's a lot of fun stuff to have there. And it's neat having people who are engaged, because at the larger conventions, there's a bit more of a sense of folks getting, if not shut down, a little bit more quiet in a group. Whereas if it's a smaller group, you can ask a question and then talk back and forth about things. More nice.
Take these away. I'm going to polish off the box if you don't.
I know. So
as you were saying, people could ask you directly all sorts of different questions, and not just okay, there's so many people. We have to take this out into the hallway. We had the opportunity to stay in the room well past the session that we were in and continue on. So there wasn't big relocation. All the rooms were close by, so that was very convenient. And everything's within short distance, so it's easy to make your way around. And
something else that we have been very fortunate to be able to take advantage of, which we saw at more cons, is the $15 buffet.
Wow!
So the hotel restaurant is offering a $15 buffet, for each meal throughout the con, and we're talking full spread.
That's a good deal.
Definitely, yeah. By the standards of any con food or hotel food, very, very impressive, and it's a full sit-down meal. So that's been really nice. Obviously, you don't necessarily always want to spend that money when you've got PB&Js or whatever, but it's really nice to be able to say, okay, I want a hot breakfast. I'm going to go down and have that.
I don't have to worry about dragging my food, and it's so close. I don't have to leave the hotel, so the convenience is right there. It's just as convenient as bringing my own food almost.
And full credit to the Hyatt. They have had full staff throughout the entire weekend, despite getting 30 inches out there.
Clean bathrooms everywhere.
Yep.
I've been impressed.
Yeah, it's been really, really impressive. So they were talking about something in one of these panels that I thought would be an interesting topic for us to discuss tonight, which is the increasing prevalence of 18-plus panels at conventions.
Oh, yeah. I have noticed a number of 18-plus panels. And as we know, there are people who are 18-plus who attend.
Yes.
So now the distribution of folks, you'd think 18-plus would be later at night.
Sure.
Just because earlier bedtimes for the younger folks. Since they're still under the parental guidance to some degree. Maybe or maybe not. As a teenager, when I was 18, I had a little bit more reign than some 18-year-olds, and some had more reign than I did. So depending upon a parent's trust. But 18 plus, does that mean if you're 18 and above, or does that mean you have to be plus 18? You have to be over 18 to attend.
Oh, it's usually 18 or over.
So on my 17th birthday, I have 1 year, my 364 days now, still can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's kind of interesting to talk about here is this question of what impact 18-plus panels have on a convention. Because on the one hand, an 18-plus panel, and there are kind of two categories of 18-plus panel. There is the panel that is discussing mature content, right? Where
what would that be?
Well, like porn.
Okay, that's straightforward. Anything involving naked people or anything with language that's objectionable.
And there are certainly panels that talk about that in an adult sense, where they're saying, okay, why is this here? Sort of analyzing that or doing screenings of some of that content. Fair enough. But then there's the 18-plus panel. It's like the Cards Against Humanity panel that they're doing tonight, where the intent is less to do something that is specifically anime analysis, if you will, or anime content related, and is more a party, if you will. So alcohol is often involved. And on stage and off, right? I guess 18-plus, that's fine. And depending on state and regulations, 21, whatever.
Yeah, 21. Yeah.
But point being that creates a very different experience. That creates a different kind of event that you can go to at a con. It kind of expands the opportunities that a con has for you to spend time with guests and do that. So the question is that what benefits and what disadvantages do those have to the con and to the con goers in general of having those sort of more party style events scheduled as part of the con?
Well, I believe that it's nice to have a chance where you can open up and not be worried about saying the wrong thing or censor that must be put in place in public, or communicating, enjoying things in public where there may be a younger crowd and it wouldn't be as acceptable. And on top of that, if a person's going to an 18-plus panel at that time of the evening, they know that it's permissible. So it's a safe environment where they know they can talk without being offensive, say stuff that, well, I mean,
well,
they can say stuff that would ordinarily be offensive in an ordinary group, but in this setting, it's expected that kind of behavior is going to be more common and not as reserved.
Certain language is more acceptable, sure.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of that coin is that sort of thing has been happening for a long time at cons in rooms, in hotel rooms, where folks will come together and they'll have a bottle of vodka and some card games or whatever, some board games, and they'll have the same kind of thing but more in private. So having those things more in public widens the circle of people who get to experience that and get to enjoy that kind of with the voice actor or whoever.
Of course, with the problem, alcohol is kind of a double-edged sword. It's a blessing, it's a curse. It's nice to have a relaxing drink once in a while, but not everybody always handles it in a way that's completely acceptable.
Sure.
And the best way to you get instant idiots if you add enough alcohol.
Yeah.
So some people loosen up a little bit more, which in this culture we feel confined a lot already. We have feelings for people. We want to say things. A little alcohol loosens us up. We may or may not have control at that point and say things that we ordinarily our self-censor would have filtered out. Whether that's good or bad, every case is different. To what degree?
Yeah. Now, do you think the existence of those panels has any impact on the average con goer who sees them in the schedule? Can you imagine somebody having an issue with that, or on the other hand, being more willing to come to a con as a result of those sorts of panels?
I'd almost say yes to both of those. And when you think of con goers, there's everybody from the person who's just turned 18 to the otaku who's been watching for years. There's the young parent who likes anime, and his kid or her kid may like anime. They may be underage. They may be teenagers. They may be. There's even parents, grandparents who come. So you get a wide range of people, and of course the younger ones are obviously not going to be allowed into the 18 plus. So in a sense, some of that audience is going to be restricted. Some parents like an 18 plus thing, but they don't want their kids to hear it. So maybe one parent takes the kid, or babysitter, or friends are looking after the child. And then they can enjoy more adult themed things where when they're with their kid, they can't indulge in those. Some people are college students where they're of the age where they're allowed to engage in all this, or 18 plus. So it provides a safer haven than just the random bar.
Yeah, good point.
And they can converse with other people with similar interests and sort of get into those kind of modes of thought. So I can see it as a positive, but at the same token, having a lot of 18 plus doesn't give a lot of alternatives to people who, while they may be of the age, may not really feel that comfortable discussing all those topics with other people that they don't know, even if they are of similar interests, or they just might not be interested in that area of 18 plus stuff. Some panels tend towards certain, I don't know, at some point I'd say a fetish. And that may be something that they're not interested in engaging. You simply don't attend the panel. At the same time, some of those 18 plus panels are so popular you can't get into them. And when I first started going to cons, I figured, I think I'll check out one of these 18 plus panels because the title of it seems really interesting. I probably won't stick around. I don't know how I'm going to feel. There's all these other people. So I waited in line and I didn't get it. So I ended up going, oh, phooey, what am I going to do with my time? Well, what else is open? And then I found a video room with a great show, and I was so much happier enjoying that great show that I
just
completely forgot about the 18 plus panel, and I found an anime that I love. So it's great having alternatives. So even if a person does want to engage in that, there's still other stuff that if they don't want to, they can. And
that also brings up the fact there was some con I was at where I noticed there were a lot of 18 plus panels. So much so that I was thinking, I wonder what other panels didn't make it onto the schedule.
Oh, there's got to be some picking and choosing that goes with designing a program, and that really, that almost sets the agenda.
Right.
Now, I've seen advertisements at different cons where one con is advertising, hey, come to our con, where they specifically say this is an adult con, the whole con.
There was one of those, yeah.
So I know that there are places where that can be more acceptable. So having a good balance is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting topic to discuss with some of the con coordinating staff, not just for this con, but for every con, to see how they choose which panels get in and which panels get out, because that really can set the agenda of a convention. Add on to that, if somebody doesn't show, how do you have plan B cons, panelists? What do you do if suddenly something happens and your talent can't make it? What are the contingencies that you can come up with to take everybody's attention and provide an enjoyable experience should something happen?
Yeah. And of course that's more of a problem with smaller cons and larger cons, which hits that other issue of a large con and you've had 3 times as many panels submitted as you have space for. Then you've got to make that choice of, okay, here are all these 18 plus panels, how many of them do we allow in or not allow in? And you're trying to cater to as many people as possible. Now, Liquidus in the chat room points out, our third host, points out that one of the advantages of an 18 plus panel would be to be able to talk about the visual novel sources for so many of these anime series. I might actually do that as an 18 plus panel at some point. That's a great idea. Because there's so much animated based on these visual novels that often have adult content in them. And so it's often tough to be able to say, go back and read the manga, play the visual novel. Well, actually, you might not want to do that unless you're, over 18. So there's that aspect to it where you can actually get into some of this more adult material and explain it. And obviously, you're not necessarily going to, throw it up on a projector, but you can at least reference it and show the the box cover and things like that, and
discuss the topics that
exactly. And you can feel safe recommending it, knowing that you're not going to get an angry letter from a parent.
So this one had some interesting rope play.
Yeah,
as my friend Heather said, the sexy macrame. Whoa.
So yeah, there's that's a great point, is that you can actually reference some of those elements, which are a part of
life,
and they're a part of the industry
and creating life.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. So, the other side of that coin too, actually, is it's funny how rarely we actually talk about the side of the industry. Not just the fact that there are these visual novels, but the fact that there is a big adult industry around anime that we tend to whisper about and not mention.
Definitely talk about in hushed tones. And so when somebody mentions that in a non-18 plus panel, it's usually alluded to or referenced, but never openly discussed.
Yeah.
So if you're in the know, you realize what's going on. If you're not, you have a suspicion about it, and you can kind of work your way up okay, so that's related to this. If I search on this, I can find that. And then next thing you know, you've found what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And
of course, you have the other side of that coin, where a hotel is not necessarily going to be happy if you do a panel which is about every single tag on an image board. And here's what all these words mean. Well, I don't know that that's the greatest use of their time. So you got to be careful of that too, that you don't want to turn it into a fetish fest for an hour.
Yeah.
Where if somebody walks in and is like, why are you, why are the people at this event showing this off and all that? There's some element of propriety there. But getting back to this topic about these more sort of party panels. So we're seeing a lot of these sort of voice actor panels where they'll get up and do skits or whatever, and it's 18 plus, or where they're playing a game. What other kind of events do you think would be interesting to have with voice actors or other celebrities where you can do it in that kind of fun way where folks are more free to talk and that allows folks to have fun kind of with those people?
That's a good question. I'd like to think about that because that's there's a number of different things event-wise, and I suppose it depends upon the scale of what's going on. Of course, within a smaller group of people, you can get more personal and joke around about stuff that you may or may not joke around about with a group of people.
Yeah.
Of course, alcohol lubricates that. That opens it up a little bit. Personal preferences about things. But I don't know. The idea of being able to just hang out with somebody when they're not on their guard is really cool.
Yeah.
So the idea of going out and hanging out with voice actors when they're at the bar sounds very appealing. The idea of playing darts or just any sort of game where it's just normal people's activities, trying things, and the idea of outside activities seems really appealing. But I don't know that it's practical in a convention. As a distance runner, I ran into some voice actors who were runners, and the idea of an early morning run was very appealing. And other activities, seeing them do karaoke or play the piano somewhere and sing out in the hallway, or do some combat mime, the boffers, for example. One that I saw that was particularly interesting was origami. Someone came and taught an origami class. Nice. It wasn't her main skill, but she knew enough to show some basics to people and have them go along and try and fail or try and succeed. And that was a lot of fun. It's not necessarily 18 plus though. So one area of 18 plus is, hey, what kind of entertainment do you consume? Why don't we check that out? And if they can open up and say, hey, I like these movies or these books, these novels. I'm into these types of photography. That sounds like something that would be interesting that could be shared. Personal hobbies.
One of the neat things they did at, I think it was Gen Con a couple of years ago, is that they played a game of D&D with 2 seasoned people in the D&D hobby and 2 random people from the audience.
Oh, nice.
And so they had a whole table set up, and these 2 people just came up, and they were able to play with Larry Elwood and an artist, I forget his name, Ari Salvatore. Hey, Gamester. And so you got this fun thing. We had these people who are just legends in their own field, along with just some guy, and just sort of playing for a couple of hours D&D. It was a lot of fun. You got some sort of back and forth with that. I'd like to see that kind of thing more. Playing those kinds of games. And just games, exactly. So now let's also talk about this. And one of the things too is you also have kind of the manana problem. Anyway, where like Vic says one of his issues is that his audience tends to be younger. So his fans tend to be teenagers. So it doesn't do him any good to be in an 18 plus panel because most of his fans aren't going to be able to get in.
That makes sense.
So you have that aspect too, where sometimes voice actors are not necessarily hesitant to do that, but they know that it's a long day. They know that doing that panel kind of restricts the number of people who can come in and locks them away from some of their fans for an hour or two. So that's what I'm going to think about in terms of cosplayers.
one thing that I thought was just fantastic. Now, it's not 18 plus, but it could be potentially, and the ideas of that are intriguing, is something that Greg Hauser, and I forgot who his co-was, is voice actors training panel.
Oh, yeah.
Where he takes members of the audience. They go through a mock audition. From that, he takes a pool of people for a panel later the next day, and they go through scripts.
Yeah.
And they do a little bit more. And then on the third day, they go through a selection process and go through the anime dubbing process in a basic, okay, here's the director, here's the producer, you're the voice actor, we're going to have you do takes. And just that experience of getting into somebody else's shoes and trying it out and getting feedback from people, it's exciting because it involves people. Unfortunately, the number of people shrinks as the time goes on, but if a person's really motivated, they can watch and enjoy vicariously to some degree the whole process. And anytime I can learn something new or try something like that, it's always intriguing.
They could do that with the big hentai.
They could. So in this section, you're
getting
ooh, ah. Okay, once more with feeling.
A lot of feeling. Wait, no.
No, just read the text. We don't need emotion yet. Ooh, ah.
That's it. Good rap. But yeah, so but then we would be remiss to not talk about the other aspect of that though, is that the complexity of having an 18 plus panel that is, shall we say, if not alcohol fueled, then alcohol is involved. That does increase the number of people at the con who are walking around with impaired judgment.
Oh, yes.
Around a lot of cosplayers.
Well, that can cause a problem there.
Yeah. We mentioned yesterday that they have a big cosplay is not consent banner downstairs. I'm trying to remind people about that whole aspect that, just because somebody's wearing a revealing outfit does not mean that you can go up and put an arm around him or her, or otherwise touch him or her. So that is a potential downside, is that if you have more of these 18 plus panels where they go into that, it can be problematic. So it's late. I can talk about this. Lakotis says about hentai that voice actors have previously done. All I can think about are Mike Pollock and Dan Green. I'll give you another one. Crispin Freeman.
It had done.
Yes. After the recording, I'll tell you about it.
Oh, my.
Oh, yes. I stumbled across this thing, and I was like, that's Crispin Freeman. And obviously, it's John Smith in the credits, but it's Crispin Freeman. There's just no question.
Wow.
Early days.
Yeah, that's surprising.
It's hilarious, actually. So yeah, it's you do get.
Imagine getting typecast.
Oh yeah. Fortunately, no one knows who you are, so it's just random work here.
2 years later, and they pull it out and blackmail you.
I have been tempted to go to Crispin Freeman and say so, and name the show and just see what his reaction was.
His show. What's your take on that?
The problem is he would never speak to me again, so not going to do that one. And it's a fuck. Yeah, I swear. I swear.
I'm surprised too.
Again, meet me at a con and I will tell you about it.
Once or twice I've listened to an anime and said, maybe a hentai, and said, that voice sounds familiar. Where do I know that from? This is disrupting my ability to watch this for other purposes.
Yeah. I watch it for the plot.
I read it for the article.
Well, you do from Playboy. You do now, actually, because they don't have the other stuff anymore.
Yeah, what's this world coming to?
Horrors. Going back to what they were like in the 60s, actually. So I'm going to tell a story because my mom now allows me to do this. My mom once posed for Playboy.
Whoa!
Now, understand this.
Hey.
This is the 70s, mid-70s. And she was a clothes model during her teen years. And so she would just model clothes for, local events and things. And she did she was kind of, I wouldn't say, she was a professional model, and she was contacted because a well-known photographer was in the DC area, and he was looking to do a photo shoot. He was being paid by Playboy for a photo shoot of just girls of DC. So fully clothed, no problems, just here are the pretty girls in DC. So you can kind of flip and say, oh, wow, I should move there, whatever. So she went there, went in for the audition. The photographer treated her very well, and he actually sort of, he saw her and like his eyes went wide, and he went over and said, come over here. I want you to definitely be in this photo shoot. So they spent a day taking photographs in DC. Again, fully clothed.
Monuments.
I was a student at Georgetown University at the time. So it was all Georgetown. Back when you could do that doing Playboy. And so and she got paid for it. It was all above board. And then she... a friend of hers was talking to the photographer like a month later and saying, when is Susan's photographs going to come in? And he said, well, I sent all of that day's film into the developer, and the developer screwed up.
Oh, no.
And the developer like opened the door on the dark room, and the entire day was lost. Oh. Everything was just completely destroyed that day. And he said, and unfortunately, we had to move on. We had to do other stuff. So it's never going to happen.
That's the way it happened.
Exactly. And she got paid. All that happened. So, so she said, I posed for Playboy. I was never actually in Playboy.
Wow.
And she would have been, just like this, but much more stylish than me. So yes, that's her Playboy story. And she does say because she knew my father at the time before I was born. And she came home and said, so I had this opportunity. Do you think this is a negative career move? Like, I'm unsure about this. Because at the time, Playboy was transitioning to where they had a lot of nudity in there, but they were still a very well-respected magazine for all the articles and the essays and so forth. So people still knew that there was serious stuff in there, but still, it's Playboy. You kind of had an idea. So yeah, that was her story.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of weird how life works. And I looked it up, and that issue was girls of DC, and they were all wow, it's crazy. Oh yeah. So as Liquid
had
says,
that door not been opened when you looked it up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I checked up on the story first, and then I went and looked up the magazine articles. So yes, the hentai dubs are usually very bad. The funny thing is, you will find an occasional hentai dub that is being done by a recognizable voice actor who's intentionally doing a bad job. So you'll occasionally be like, I think I recognize that voice actor, but they're not trying. Obviously they were put in the booth for an hour and paid to do it. So like, fine, I'll just kind of throw it out there. So sometimes that happens too, where somebody middle of the road, whatever.
Sometimes you got to make that mortgage payment.
Exactly. It definitely happens.
Well, anime is such a tricky talent that pays so little. It's much harder technically to match lip flaps than it is to free voice something for an original animation or do commercial copy, or it's coordinating your lip flaps, your beeps, your in cue, your out cue, your speed and pace so that you cut it out at the same time, and fit in all the words, keeping them clean, precise, and what the director wants. And sometimes
while you're acting,
while you're acting, and keeping track of what you're watching on the screen, the time codes, and it's and not knowing enough about the character or the situation to really give it your full acting depth that you could give it. There's no go home and study this character for 3 or 4 days, learn it inside and out, and come back. No, it's okay, surprise, this, you're doing this, okay. Very, very limited information.
Yeah.
So it's almost improv every time. There's some degree of background that you can get into, but for the most part, it's improv. And so it's amazing how much talent goes into anime, how little compensation comes with the degree of talent that goes into it. So the people who are doing this really do it because they love it.
Yeah. In one of the panels today, there's one of the voice actors was saying she doesn't know any anime voice actor who only does anime voice acting. They all have other stuff on the side.
Commercial copy,
video games,
loops. That's where the money is in doing video games right now. So a lot of people have moved in that direction, and with the overlap of games and gamers. And
somebody was saying that you'll notice how a lot of anime voice actors are also musicians.
Yes,
which that crops up partly because of the whole lip flap thing. If you can fit it into that, there's a rhythm to that, and so once you get used to that rhythm, it's easier for you to do that if you also know music.
Karaoke would be second nature then. Oh, okay, it's text on the screen. This is easy.
Crispin Freeman has his story of going in to dub at Disney for Howl's Moving Castle, and he went in, and the folks actually doing the audio recording didn't know who he was. Like the casting director absolutely knew, but the technicians there just didn't know him, and so they went in and they were used to dealing with these Disney Channel stars who came in to do stuff, and so they said, okay, so they're gonna be 3 beeps, I know, and you can be okay, I know, and so they did beep beep beep, boom, and he does his line, and they're all like, good, yeah, we can go on to the next line.
Well, everybody's doing take 3, take 4, take 5, take 8, take 20.
Yeah, he was done in like 15 minutes. Just okay, we're good. I can hang out
and talk with people.
Which may be one of the reasons why I believe he is in Frozen. I believe he did some dialogue replacement in the movie Frozen, which he never admit to. But again, find me at a con at some point, and I will show you the clip. Oh yes, so Liquidus is bringing up an interesting factoid, and it is correct. There was a hentai that was made by the same team that brought you Tenchi Muyo. And I'm forgetting the name of it because I did research this and watch it through.
The same team, does that include the same characters?
No, but okay. It is technically in the Tenchi universe.
Oh, the Tenchi Feely.
Yeah. It is softcore. A good way of putting it. It never gets really explicit, but it is definitely hentai. And there's some fairly extreme elements in there. But it does have the kind of fun, odd space opera feel of Tenchi Muyo. Wow. Kind of weird space fantasy. It's a big space fantasy story with sex and stuff. Well, it is in there.
Now it's funny to mention that it's softcore, which is you don't see as much softcore in anime.
Yeah,
it's either usually leading up to it or it's hentai.
Yeah.
The idea of softcore is there's I guess relatively fewer. There seems to be less of that gray area.
Yeah.
And somebody who had been in one of the discussion rooms when we were discussing upcoming genres, what's the next genre in anime, was saying ecchi. So I'm wondering, how can that possibly be? Because as much as I'd seen, the closest you can get is fan service or hentai. Do you think that even has a chance to become a genre?
It's a good question. There's a chance of anything. Yeah, Desert Fox says, isn't anime itself kind of softcore? Well, yeah, it depends on how you look at it.
Some of it.
Yeah. I've certainly
seen. But the guys never seem to have a completed relationship.
Yeah. And I can certainly think of some anime series where there are sexual scenes and where the characters have clearly had sex that aren't hentai. I think the issue is come down to genre and expense. Because of how much time and relative money it takes to make animation. When you're making hentai, you're going to go for something that is more likely to sell, right? You can't determine as much because you have all these resources to commit to it. So you're generally not going to you're generally going to go stronger rather than softer in hentai if you have a choice.
That makes sense.
And then in anime, because anime for television is made for television,
so it has restrictions just by that nature.
Right.
So if you know you're not going to television, you have more leeway.
Yeah. So if you're doing if you're doing a TV series, it's aimed for like the satellite stations, then you get away with that with things like Rin Daughters of No Sign, which is definitely softcore. Strong softcore, but definitely there. And then some other things like Freezing, for example, which has that's not quite softcore, but there's some stuff there. High School of the Dead, as Liquidus points out. Then there's the whole OVA market, and
that might be where it could really find a niche.
That certainly could, and that's much more of an open question because the OVA market is aimed at fans and based on what the fans want. So it really is a supply and demand issue at that point.
Ladies and gentlemen, hear that? Give them feedback.
Exactly. But then again, you also have that problem of how to sell it, if you will. So we've had a good example of that would be actually those are hardcore.
That makes me wonder, what is the model that most OVAs follow for being sold?
Well, and so many of the OVAs are adaptations of existing things or spin-offs of existing things. So it'll be because they're a visual novel or something else and they can't get the budget for a TV series, but they can do a 3-episode OVA. And there are enough fans of that to really get that go. Quiet Country Cafe that we were looking at earlier, a popular thing, but not really commercial. It's a nice, quiet, philosophical, not even philosophical, but contemplative. Excellent word. Sort of show. So think more like Aria, the animation, or Kino's Journey. And again, just not really commercial enough for a 13-episode series, but they made a 2-episode OVA and then another 2-episode OVA later. So that is some cool stuff. There's that is a way of kind of getting people in, but you're not going to see as much of that softcore stuff. Now, you also have the problem that Japan specifically has a somewhat complicated relationship with that kind of content in general. So very much like that, there are films for families and normal people, and then there's very hardcore stuff, and there is some stuff like the pink films, which are
films.
So these are live action films that are softcore-ish. There is sexual material in them, but it doesn't go as far as we do in terms of implying sexual encounters. There's just more kind of sexiness. So that's kind of weird. So in other words, there seems to be less of a market for softcore in Japan generally. And that might explain why there's less of a market for it in anime. So, and maybe there's enough of a market for it from American fans that can bring some more folks in.
Although relying on American fanship to influence the anime industry is a tough nut to crack.
Exactly. So Liquid Snake, so Spaceship Agaruder is the one I was talking about. And then Masquerade, I'm actually not familiar with Masquerade. I'll have to look that up. Not now.
Complete Tenchi collection.
They get the complete Tenchi collection, exactly.
I remember that.
Find that out. So Desert Fox asks a great question in the chat room. Do the studios who make TV aired anime also make hentai? Or is hentai more like made by other studios? Or individual artists being hired for the show? It's a very good question. Nobody wants to talk about this. So it's hard to get definitive answers. They're usually done by other studios. They're studios who will specialize in making hentai. You will often, but because pretty much all animators are not full-time employees of the studios, they are sort of hired on as catch as catch can. Often you will get animators who work at a normal studio will on the side do some of this for extra cash. And
that makes sense. You got to supplement the income,
right?
From anime, hey,
or you may bounce back and forth and say, "I'm going to spend 6 months doing this" because they have a lot of projects, going, and then
they're busy. Something to pay the bills in the meantime. I need to eat. Back and forth and back and forth.
Right. And there is somewhat less stigma in Japan against doing adult work. So if you're a director and you end up doing something, it's not as hard to get back into the regular industry as long as you're not, advertising that I went and I made this thing.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a little easier to go off and do those projects and then come back.
Wow.
But
The idea I could run for office after doing that
might be a little difficult. So
I'm curious about these two. Did we have some footage we were gonna?
Yes, we did actually. So we have some footage from the convention we wanted to show you guys here. I'm going to pull this up here and then let you guys see it.
As we streamline our future processes, we'll probably be able to bring you more footage at a faster pace from these conventions. This weekend has been a proof of concept doing on-site streaming to you, but in the future we hope to get some more video footage at cons that we can up, so we can keep you up to date on what's going on at the cons. And we have a little bit that we may try playing for you at some point, and it should be interesting.
Oops, 1 second. Let's get the audio routed in correctly there. Sorry, 1 second, guys.
Unlike a lot of the other content that we talk about where we can't play the audio for you, this
now we
part
can.
of the press, and we're here covering this press. We can show a little bit.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the transcode process and getting it all set over to our computers, as well as doing all the other stuff we do, takes a little bit of time. So we may have to work out our procedures, but when we do, we can come up with some interesting things here and there.
So here you go.
Me. Sound?
So hopefully that played for you guys.
I think the sound might not have come through.
Well, we didn't get sound immediately, but we may have gotten sound once I routed the audio back through.
Let's see.
There we go. So I had the sound routing back to the mixer there.
I might not have had that.
Oh, that would have explained it.
Let's see.
So,
give that a listen.
All right. Let me screen that again. Sorry about that, guys. 1 second.
Oh, we were peaking there.
Okay.
A little bit distorted. Okay. Let's see if I can hear it. No, I think there's a feedback loop somewhere there.
Okay. Do you want me to keep this up while you play with that?
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Okay. I'm not hearing anything now.
I'm not playing it yet.
Oh, you want to try playing it?
Speaking of America, since we have another international person.
No, stop. Thank you. Somebody clap. Thank you.
I think they should.
Let me strange the clapping stones as soon as I come back on stage.
Don't flatter yourself.
I'll just, okay.
Who are you? What do you do?
No idea.
I don't either.
Since you're from another country, I'm from the Caribbean. From me. Gross. Tell me if this isn't ironic. You're all from America, right? Except you? Yeah. Where are you from? Good for you. Most of you left my country over a tea tax.
Oh.
There we go. So, so that's all we managed to pull off tonight, but that is really cool. Yeah, that is a very good Captain Jack Sparrow. It's
Uh,
a great job.
the rest of that joke was most of you people left my country over a tea tax, and now you pay tax on tea. So,
Hey, Death Cannon, yes, we would absolutely consider that. We have to get back into the our regular setup to be able to do that again. We don't really have the bandwidth to do that here at a hotel on hotel internet connection.
oh, I didn't see.
But maybe we can do that at a later date. Absolutely agreed. Any Eva love at the con? In terms of cosplay, no, actually, I haven't seen any Eva cosplay there that I can
Oh
think
yeah,
of.
that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is. I did see a Digimon cosplayer, to my surprise. And then, well, not too much surprise actually with Digimon Try.
Is it
Some
possible to
Pokemon.
go to a con? Not?
it's surprising. So yeah, there's been quite a bit of cosplay actually.
Yeah, and the schedule, the lineup for this was going to be cosplay heavy.
Yeah.
So it's too bad that the snows kept some of that away, but it
Mhm.
didn't keep everybody away. So
Yeah.
of the cosplay that we've seen, it's been quite entertaining.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely been a fun con. I can't complain at all.
Pictures for these people.
Don't worry, we'll get it to them.
We'll get it to you.
No, we're getting better all the time. This would be a good time to mention we're going to be at CatsCon in 2 weeks. I'll be doing 3 panels there. In fact, I can tell you what the panels are. Dance while I pull up the
dance, monkey dance. I hold out my cup.
What was the song?
Fallout cosplay.
What was the David Bowie song from Labyrinth? Dance, magic, dance, dance, magic. Okay.
Now, did you see a Fallout cosplay?
I don't know.
Did we have the let's see, Pip Boy? What's the Pip
The
Boy?
Pet
from?
Boy. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, we saw some that we will reserve for a future interview that is quite exciting. It overlaps with some of our technology shows, our intended technology shows that will be coming up regarding 3D printing. So I'll let your imagination run with that, but I'll just say that I said the Pip Boy. That's enough.
So I'll be doing these are all Saturday panels at CatsCon. I'll be doing Understanding Japan Through Anime that reveals Japanese culture. I'll be doing How Ink and Paint Come Alive, How Anime is Made.
That's a great one.
And the Amazingly Obscure Anime panel, Amazingly Obscure Anime that are still awesome. So that should be a fun one for that.
I always want to get my pen and paper out when he does those because all sorts of titles come up that I've never heard of that I want to check out. Even the fans come up with some that's just wow.
And I should point out at my panels, I always have handouts so that not only do you have my notes, you can also scribble down on that things that folks have come up with as the panel goes on. We will not be at Anime Expo this year since that's the other side of the country, sadly. That's outside of our budget this year. The voice acting talent this year, that's a very good question.
Vic Mignogna, Emily Neves, Anthony Bowling, Felicia Angeli, Mark Lancaster, and of course, as we mentioned, some of the cosplay, Aaron Rabbit and Kubi. She was Miss South Carolina 2011-2012.
Nice.
Pretty interesting.
Not bad.
So those were the voice actors we have seen this weekend, and because it's a smaller group, one of our friends who plays piano had a chance to play with Vic, and the two of them did some piano work and singing out in the lobby. Imagine that. And Vic just walks out and the guy's playing piano, and next thing you know, Gary's playing with Vic.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I agree, Liquidus, about common cosplay themes. I'll add Homestuck along with number 1 there. Homestuck continues to take over anime. Did
we see Homestuck here?
Yeah, there are quite a few Homestucks. Yeah. Can't get away from Homestuck. It's kind of funny. And that was the other good news, actually, speaking of voice actors, is that all their guests were able to make it. So none of the flights got canceled. BWI, they canceled all their flights today. So pretty bad. So that was a good thing.
There was one panel that I had really hoped to make to, but again, there were a few panelists who just didn't make it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with having panelists who are only scheduled for some days, because then if something comes up, then they can't make it on that one day when the emergency happens. That's a problem. All right, we've been going for about an hour. I think that's a pretty good place to break off for the evening. We probably will not be back on Sunday since I'm going to have to travel back.
Dig our way out through the snow.
Yeah, that's going to be much of the day.
Oh my.
And then we should be back on this coming up Friday for more anime and
Do we have
more
a
stuff.
convention? What's our next convention?
Our next convention is Katsucon in 2
Katsucon.
weeks.
Come and see.
So we will be there.
Yes.
And then this Friday we'll be talking about the question of what elements of an anime concept make for a good long-running series. So
Legs.
kind of. So what are those things that make a multi-hundred episode show work,
Oh, wow.
or even just a 50-episode show, but that don't make it drag, basically. So we'll be talking about that this Friday.
Would Ranma count as not dragging?
Yeah, depending on how you ask.
Depends on how I'm defining drag.
So before we leave, Death Cannon asks, would anyone big like Anno or Tomino come to an American con? Well, Tomino did. Tomino came to New York Anime Fest a couple years ago.
Ooh, cool.
And then Anno has been invited to at least one con that I know of and was about to come, but they couldn't make it at the last minute. So he is interested. That is a possibility.
I'd love to hear Yoko Kano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that would just be fantastic. I mean,
Yeah. Yoko Kano was at Otakon 2000, I believe. So that is a
That's a few
possibility
years
as well.
back.
Yeah, it's a few years back. And she has lots of other projects these days, so who knows?
I believe Miss Carolina does count as cosplay.
That
Doesn't
works
she?
for
Isn't
me.
she? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you all very much for joining us. Appreciate it. We will see you on Friday. Take care.